Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you my personal highlights from this year's June Steam NextFest. I have looked through hundreds of games. I even broke Steam NextFest Discovery queue because I went through about 400 games on day one, and then suddenly it stopped working and never showed me the queue again. Oops. I would have loved to go through most of the games in this NextFest because I'm always interested to see what new games are coming up, especially in the indie space. Still, even with Steam stopping me from going through all of them, I managed to find and play some cool games. I'm not sure whether all the demos will still be available after NextFest ends on Monday, but at least I can show you some gameplay for each game I liked and talk about them enough to hopefully give you a good idea of whether you'd like to wishlist it and keep an eye on it. At the end of the video, I'll also toss in an extra recommendation for a game that has a demo out but isn't participating in this NextFest just because I really enjoyed it. Before we get into it, I'd like to take a moment to say a special thank you to my members who help keep this channel running. I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider joining as a member to support me and unlock perks like early access to videos. Joining is very much appreciated, but not required. I am always thankful even if you just take the time to like the video and maybe leave a comment. Back to NextFest. Let's start the list of games I enjoyed with Hellclock. This is a roguelike ARPG with a dark fantasy story based on Brazil's War of Canudos. I think the story and setting are really unique, and I always appreciate an interesting narrative twist, even if the game is more action-focused. While I haven't spoken much about ARPGs or roguelikes yet on my channel, just one ARPG so far, Tower of Kalamanvo, I do enjoy playing some of them a lot. I grew up playing Diablo 2 ever since I was a little kid. My cousins taught me how to play all the way back in 2001 or 2002. Shout out to Florin for having the patience to teach me. And I have been playing D2 and D3 over the years. As for roguelikes, I love Hades 1 and 2 because of the cool Greek mythology setting and amazing storytelling, but of course the visuals, music, and gameplay are top-notch as well. Anyway, all of this is to say that I love what Hellclock is doing as both an ARPG and a roguelike. It feels like Diablo with its gameplay. It has cool visuals that are clearly somewhat inspired by Hades, but also doing their own thing with a darker tone. I will say that I would have liked to see a different weapon as well, not just a pistol. I'm not the biggest fan of the visuals of guns. I think an enchanted crossbow would have worked just as well and would have had Diablo 3 Demon Hunter vibes. But to be fair, it's possible that guns were an important part of the War of Canudos, so the devs focused on this gunslinger archetype for the main character. The game has an interesting mechanic of a time limit to descend through the floors, but it's not the kind of time limit that makes you sweat, I don't think. I'm usually not a big fan of timers in games, but I felt like this one gave me enough to work with, and more importantly, since it's a roguelite, you're making at least a little bit of progress with every run, so even if you run out of time, it's fine. You'll just get stronger and faster and manage to get through more floors next time. However, if you really hate timers, don't worry. There's actually an option to turn the timer feature off entirely. I appreciate that the devs implemented this because there are lots of people who I'm sure might feel stressed out or annoyed by the timer, so it's a nice thing that pushes you to get better if you want it, but it's only optional. I also saw that there's a hardcore mode, which makes it so that if you die, you lose all your progress and must start all over again. I assume that if you just run out of time in a run, you may be able to just go back to your base and try again, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, Hellclock was so fun that I played for over an hour, even though I just meant to play for like 20 minutes to have some footage to show you. And even now, I want to go back and play some more. If you give the demo a try, I've seen that your progress will carry over to the full game if you end up liking it enough to buy it when it comes out. And that's not very far away. Hellclock will release on July 22nd, just a bit over a month from now. Definitely looking forward to it, and I'll make an indie highlights video to show it off once it releases and I get to play more of it. Next up, Rue Valley. It's a narrative RPG, disco-like really, about a man trapped in a time loop dealing with mental challenges while trying to figure out a weird anomaly that kind of looks like the end of the world. Emotion Spark Studio are the devs, and Owlcat Games are publishing it. You may know Owlcat Games from their CRPGs Pathfinder Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous, as well as Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. This is obviously a game they're publishing instead of developing, but I think they have great taste in the games they're choosing to publish. I already made a video about Rue Valley previously when I played an early version of it, and it's shaping up to be a really amazing disco-like. Frankly, so far this is the only disco-like that actually feels disco to me. Mainly because the devs seem to have understood that the core appeal of Disco Elysium is in the main character's psychology and personality in combination with interesting choices that change the outcome of the story, and focused in on that in a new and intriguing way. Rue Valley has the protagonist, Mr. Harrow, stuck in a strange 47-minute time loop while he's in a remote location, the eponymous Rue Valley, for apparently government-mandated therapy. But all is not as it seems. Harrow clearly has some issues with spacing out, perhaps even delusions, derealization, or depersonalization, especially considering that one of the core mechanics of the game is that the personality you chose at the beginning of the game can shift in each time loop. There's also a strange phone call you get from some people claiming to want to get you out of whatever strange therapy you've been forced into, and it certainly feels to me like Harrow isn't actually in the real world. I'm a sucker for time loops, alternate universes, and weird, mind-bending stories happening within a character's dreams or hallucinations or the like, so I am absolutely this game's target audience. But I think that there's a lot to love about it, even if you're not as sold on the story setup as I am. The visuals are cool, inspired by comics and visual novels. The voice acting is pretty nice from the limited amount I've heard in the demo. The gameplay is interesting, offering you a bunch of different choices, and seeing how far you can take things in a certain direction feels intriguing. If you love Disco Elysium, absolutely give the demo of Rue Valley a try and keep your eyes peeled on this game. I think it's going to be a huge hit. And just as with Hellclock, I will make an indie highlights video for it when it comes out, and I've had a chance to play more of it. Unfortunately, we don't have a clear release date on the Steam page quite yet, but considering the fact that usually devs submit their game to the final NextFest before they release, it's fair to say it'll probably release before October this year, delays notwithstanding. The third game that caught my eye is a bit of a weird one, Becoming Saint. It's a roguelike strategy game where you are the leader of a cult, choose various rules as part of your cult's doctrine, recruit followers, and lead them into battles of religious conversion against other cities in Italy. The overall goal, of course, is to become a saint. I assume this is done by managing to convert all the cities, or at least a majority, to your religion. Though that's likely easier said than done. This game has a lot of attitude, but I'm not quite sure how to feel about it. I enjoyed playing it for about half an hour or so, but I'm worried that the gameplay I saw is a bit too simplistic and repetitive. The gameplay loop is choose rules, recruit followers, then march upon a city to convert it with a strategic battle. But the strategic battle more so depends on you choosing the right unit types that have bonuses against the city's units, and making sure they're attacking the right units once combat begins. You can also bless your units and curse enemy units, though I'm not really sure what that does. I couldn't tell whether there's a deeper story to this game either, because if it's just a player-made story about your cult, then that isn't too appealing to me, since I prefer my games to have more of an actual story rather than, what do they call it, emergent narrative. Nevertheless, I think the visuals and vibes of this game were interesting enough to give it a shout out here. Maybe someone else is going to see it and find it really fun. As it stands, I'd probably pay €7 or less for a game like this, since I can't see myself playing it for more than 1 or 2 evenings. I know there's plenty of gamers out there who are fine with playing a game for just a tiny bit like that, so hopefully Becoming Saint appeals to you. Anyway, the game will release in less than a month, on July 15th, so we'll find out soon enough whether it's got enough meat to it to be a success. I'll keep my eye on it, but I likely won't make a video about it. Again, while it's interesting and has cool vibes, it doesn't feel like a full game. More like someone's game jam submission that they polished up afterwards for a couple of months. Do let me know what you think of this game in the comments though, if you've played it. Maybe I'm just missing the point of it? The final game I really enjoyed as part of NextFest is Tiny Bookshop, a cozy management game in which you, obviously, own a tiny secondhand bookshop, stock it with different books and decorate it with various items, and sell your books in various locations in a quaint little town. I actually played an earlier demo of this in a previous festival on Steam and absolutely loved it, and have been looking forward to it ever since. Everything works so well in this game. The visuals are charming in a storybook style. I love interacting with the special NPCs, part of the main story, but I think it's the little details that really set this game apart from other games. You can click on customers to say hello or goodbye, can interact with various things in the area like bothering seagulls or petting a dog. There's a recommend a book minigame, where you can try to find a suitable book for a customer who's trying to look for something more specific. There's no real pressure though. You can just tell that customer that you may have something the next day if you can't find the suitable book. I don't know, this game actually understands what a cozy feeling is and manages to exude that feeling through everything it does. I've played quite a lot of other cozy games, and I've found them a bit frustrating or annoying at times because they're trying too hard to do things in a classic game way, whereas Tiny Bookshop managed to figure out how to create actual cozy gameplay to fit the vibe. I don't know how many of my viewers are interested in these types of games, but if you are, I think Tiny Bookshop is the best cozy game I've played so far, and I've only played the demo. It's coming out on August 7th, and I'm absolutely going to make an indie highlights video for it to show off just how beautiful all of its different locations are, and talk some more about how fun and relaxing it is to play. These have been the 4 demos that really stood out to me from this June's NextFest. Some other demos I played that were somewhat interesting but didn't make the cut were Davy X Jones, a weird first-person action-adventure inspired by the legendary Davy Jones. I didn't quite understand what its whole deal was. The combat was pretty fun, though a bit too simple for my tastes, too hack and slash and not enough something. Also, the gun looks like it shoots a certain type of liquid, which I wasn't a huge fan of. The story could be interesting, but it didn't seem all that compelling in the demo. The game also stuttered a bunch, and I even thought at some point it broke completely when my weapons disappeared and I could only move in some weird ways, but it ended up sorting itself out after I kept spamming all the buttons. I thought about including it as part of the highlights, but the experience wasn't really a highlight, more so just a weird thing that I wasn't sure I wanted to keep playing. And Galvatine Adventurers Guild. This one is a weird hero guild management game that also has visual novel and cooking game elements. It's a Chinese game, I think, but it looked interesting enough that I gave it a try. The placeholder English translation wasn't bad, and they mentioned that they would get a professional translation for the full release. The game has an interesting fantasy anime style and, as I said, a unique blend of gameplay elements. But it seems fairly shallow from what I've seen. The first 2 chapters that were available in the demo seemed to go by very quickly, and there wasn't a lot of substance or depth to the story. I'm sure some people would be interested in this strange blend, but it didn't really mesh with me. There is one more demo that caught my eye, however, even though it's not actually taking part in NextFest: Hordes of Fate, A Hand of Fate Adventure. Bit of a mouthful, that title. I'm actually a big fan of Hand of Fate, a quirky roguelike deck builder that has a blend of board game gameplay and action combat. It's a weird little combination, but I love it. I'll be sure to make an indie highlights video for Hand of Fate 2 sometime soon because I think a lot more people would love it if they knew about it. But anyway, back to Hordes of Fate. This one is a Vampire Survivors-like, set in the Hand of Fate universe. I wasn't big on Vampire Survivors, mainly due to its visuals I think, but I enjoyed the Swarm game mode in League of Legends, and I loved playing through Hordes of Fate as well. I think for me the setting is far more important of an element, though to be fair, I also enjoy that in Hordes of Fate you get some of the fun event cards from Hand of Fate, which usually also have you engage in the card gambit minigame, or have some interesting options available if you have certain pieces of gear chosen for your character's abilities at certain levels. Of course, for now the demo is quite limited, with just one playable character, Malaclips the Trickster, but more characters will be added to the full game, as well as tons more content. Even so, it's a very solid demo that showcases what the game will be like, and it definitely got me hyped up for it. Though, as I said, I was already a fan of the Hand of Fate universe beforehand, so I'm far more likely to be interested. But I'd still urge you to give this demo a try. Since it's not part of NextFest, I imagine the demo will continue to be up for a longer time, and maybe Hordes of Fate will participate with an updated demo in the October NextFest this year, since the game will release sometime in 2025 according to the Steam page. Anyway, this has been my experience with this year's June NextFest. I admit, I was a bit disappointed because I expected to see more interesting games, though I guess usually the October and February NextFest are more packed with good games. Don't know why, but the majority of summer releases aren't amazing most of the time. But I am glad that Tiny Bookshop finally has a release date, since I was looking forward to it for a very long time. Hellclock will also be great fun to play, and whenever Rue Valley ends up releasing, I know it's going to be big. Did I miss any super interesting or cool games that you discovered this NextFest? Let me know down below if there's anything I should check out. Maybe Steam just stopped showing it to me because I broke its discovery queue. In any case, if you're looking forward to more videos about games I like, do remember to subscribe, and leave a like and comment while you're at it too. They really help. This has been B Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.